Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another weekend here at Apollo Racing Club. As always, my name is Matt McAdams. I'll be bringing you the action up here from the commentary booth. And again, we have another special treat this weekend. We are going to be joined by another commentator here, a frequent guest here at Apollo Racing Club, also a driver that I get to see an awful lot of because he drives in multiple different leagues here, but none other than Jeff Spangler himself. Go ahead and say something to the folks watching at home.
Weekend. If I can't race this weekend, I guess this is second best. So happy to be here and looking to have some fun.
And it's definitely going to be a fun one. I'll go ahead and get us over to looking at the cameras right now. We've got Shu Chen out on his starting qualifying lap. And if you guys can see what I'm seeing on the cameras right now, you'll notice something about the track. It's a little bit more shiny than normal. There's a lot of water on it. It is a wet one at Imola this weekend. It is going to be raining for the majority of the day. It looks like, based on how the weather in practice and quali is looking, we'll see what the race looks like. But right now, all that is on our driver's mind is just qualifying here at Imola. It is a notoriously tricky track. In fact, so tricky. In fact, it's been changed a number of times that I can't remember because of how dangerous this track has been historically. But Shu Chen doing an excellent job of getting around the track right now. He will be our first one across the start-finish line, so we'll start to have an idea of what our qualifying pace will look like here shortly. But what kind of experience you got at Imola, Jeff? You drive a lot more than I do, so I'll let you be the expert today.
Yeah, this is honestly one of my favorite tracks. Really loved it ever since it came into to ACC. There's just so much going on here. So many turns that really can make or break a lap. A lot of chicanes, but unlike some tracks, like I said, there's more variety here. It's not just a set of chicanes. Something like Zolder, perhaps. Really, really great track. I think it really challenges drivers in a lot of ways. And like I said, I'm really sad I can't drive it.
Yeah, it is a favorite of mine as well. We're actually here. I race our Thursday night leagues. We do this single make for Porsche Cup cars, the new ones that came out, the 992. And it was as much of a nightmare as I'm sure you can imagine. Anybody who drives in this game frequently will know the Cup car has no traction control, and the Cup car is basically a beefed up GT3 RS. So we're going to have our first time across the line right now. It's going to be a 153.4. We've got a couple others getting ready to cross the line. Kriegs is going to be the next one here in one of the Apollo Racing Club mods. Lamborghinis here comes across the line, going to set a not his first. That's going to be his first lap. So actually, we don't have a lap time from him yet. So let's take a look over at the number 24 car, 84, Ricky Scott. This one should be a flyer, although it looks like it's an invalid lap. So, yep, not going to be it, but it looked like a 157-ish unofficially. Let's see, who's on a valid lap? We got Liam McNeil coming across the line right now, going to set a 153.9. Just going to put him just a little bit off of second place, which is going to be just a slightly, or excuse me, that was a 154.3 from Liam McNeil, and Ice Tin comes across with a 153.9, half second from first place. Shu Chen, who is already trying to improve on that pace right now, is 9/10 a second now up in the Delta coming around Aqua Minerale. And really making this track look easy despite the weather conditions. There we go. Now I've got the timing up there. And a new fastest lap comes across the line. Going to be Andre Afonso with a 153.0. Shu Chen still well on his way to beating that time now. Just 3 corners to go here of this lap. We'll see what he's able to do with it. This is going to be a blistering time. It's looking like it may even be in the 151 range, which would be absolutely absurd. Faster than I think anything we saw during qualifying. Or practice earlier, excuse me.
Yeah, it seems to me in this car that a pretty good wet pace is about 10 seconds slower than a pretty good dry pace. And there you go, 151.9. So laying it down so far. It's also kind of nice with these wet tires. They do get up to temp and pressure a lot faster than the dry tires, which in this car is nice because I swear it takes like 3 laps in this thing to get them up, since there's no tire warmers. So a little bit different than your typical GT3 car experience.
That it is, and it's definitely a much more exciting one. These STs are quite the handful if you're used to driving the regular Huracan, although I've heard if you can figure this one out, you can drive the Huracan pretty much no problem. Let's see here. Shu Chen's still out there trying to improve on the lap time. You can see over on the left-hand side of your screen. The purple border means he is on pace to set another one, now 3/10 up in the Delta. Andre Afonso trying to catch him as well, but he's got some work to do. Almost a 2-second gap between first and second place right now. Tim Wilkins right now on the cameras, coming around, getting ready to set another lap. Got almost a second in the Delta. Will be a huge improvement for him, moving him up maybe 2 positions, but will definitely get Liam McNeil coming across the line here. Moves from, almost sneaks it in. Got about a half second to go. We'll see if he's able to get it on another run. We've got another 7 minutes of qualifying here, so plenty of time for him to get back out on the track with some adjustments to the setup, get a better lap time down. Ice 10 now coming around the hairpin that destroys all good laps. Still manages to hang on to the green Delta, though.
Yeah, when I said corners that make or break a lap, that was literally the one I was thinking of, that hairpin. You just got to try to carry as much speed as you can through there, but if you wash out too far onto that green curbing there, it's game over. It just shoots you right off the edge.
It's pretty much like driving on glass, especially in these conditions. And even with the traction control that the Lamborghinis have, oh my goodness, he does it again. Shu Chen comes across the line with a 151.5. Shaves 0.4 of a second off of that lap. And the other drivers now have to really get on top of it to try and close that gap now. 0.7 to the next car. Another tricky one that we were actually just got Ice Tin going around right when we switched over to him is Tamarillo, which is the top of that hill after that hairpin we were just talking about. Very, very dicey in these wet weather conditions because you can start to get the rear end of the car to kind of skitter around, like we saw that Lamborghini in the background there. Just do an excellent job of demonstrating for us.
Yeah, it's real easy. This car's a little wild. It's a lot of fun. It's carrying significantly more horsepower than your normal GT3, but the brakes are pretty good, so that it really kind of evens out. I mean, in dry conditions, at least, your braking point isn't too far in front of where it would be in a normal GT3. So, but yeah, these cars are a lot of fun, and of course, this track's not nearly as bouncy as Olton last week, but it can be a little bone jarring.
Yeah. That is very, very true. Yeah, this is a different FIA-graded track. As we know, F1 does race here, so a little bit more tame as far as the conditions of the tarmac go, but certainly not because it is any less exciting here. This is the corner I was talking about just a little bit ago, Tamarillo. Coming around this one, weird coasting corner. You got to be really, really patient to get back on the throttle, or you'll just spin the car out into the runoff there. And you can see that little bounce that Lamborghini had there. Is where you got to be real careful. If you come around that corner just wrong and hit that bounce, you'll lose the back end here. Hopefully we won't see too much of that from our drivers today. Of course, hoping for clean racing here. 9 cars on track. We want to see them all finish today. But it is going to be about as challenging of a drive as any of these drivers I think are going to face on the schedule, unless we see rain at Bathurst. But let's cross everything you got, folks. we want dry weather conditions when we're down an upside down land. Let's take a look over at Ricky Scott here. 1.2 seconds up in the Delta, getting ready to finish his lap here, coming around the final corner. Lamborghinis will be doing almost 150 miles an hour at top speed here, coming down this straight, down to just shy of 60 miles an hour to get around that first corner. Just gives you an idea of just how well these brakes work, even in these wet weather conditions. We got a yellow flag here. Looks like right out in front of Ricky Scott, we might get to see what's causing the drama here. Must have just been somebody off wide. Made the marshals a little nervous, but off he goes.
Yeah, looks like Afonso's white flagged. That's him right in front of Ricky here, so I'm guessing he had to cut the chicane. And
yeah.
Just first chicane there and just kept going, so. Looks like Felix Pilat has usurped Afonso for P2 here with his most recent lap.
Yep, that's going to move him up, and he's actually continuing to improve on that. And actually, as we're saying that, I almost want to go over to him, but here's what we'll do instead. Shu Chen is going out and continuing to improve on that previous lap time. So let's go ahead and just up in the throws onboard up there in the top right for everybody to see. He's coming around the third chicane now. Still almost a second up on that lap time. So we're actually going to put all cameras on him here as he comes around the final two corners here. We'll see if he's able to hang on to it. He's looking at 150 territory easily right now. We'll see if he's able to pull it off, which would be mind-bending, but it does look like the rain has stopped, interestingly enough, so I actually think that is what's going to lead to all of the green times you see over on the right-hand side of your screen there, as the track is just getting faster, which is what's probably to do with most of the lap time we're seeing right here, as he's not taking the dry lace, taking the inside line to try and cool those tires off, but he does set a 150.4, which is going to be unbeatable for most of the field. Unless it continues to get faster, we might see these drivers get a little bit more comfortable with the line and maybe pick up the paces here. But that is going to be a difficult time to beat with only 2 minutes and 36 seconds remaining in this qualifying session.
Yeah, mixed conditions is always a little fun, a little tricky just because it's a game of, well, you know, how can I time things best so that if the rain is stopped, or if maybe even if it stopped right before the session started, you know that track's going to dry out. So how can you put yourself in the best position to go out there and be able to get a valid lap down there at the very end, when you obviously have a pace advantage though with the dry track. So we might see some folks in the order here. Ooh, that's looks like you had some fun there. We might see the order of some of these guys flip around a little bit before the end of quality.
Yeah, if we get lucky, you know, a couple of these, you're exactly on the money. This is an opportunity for some of the drivers who may not necessarily have been as fast in the full wet conditions to gain an extra position or two on the starting grid, which could mean everything here at Imola, especially because this is a notoriously difficult track to pass at. Every position counts.
Yeah, and then throw in the single make. You know, you're driving the exact same machinery as everybody else on the track, so it's your starting position becomes even more important. You're absolutely right.
And actually, even more so with these cars, not quite as much as the Cup cars, but these ST Evo 2s have very limited setup options as far as what the drivers are able to change about how the car behaves, as far as, you know, the spring rates, anti-roll bars, all that fun stuff. Oh my goodness, he went even faster. 149.8 now being the time to beat. Let's see, who's closest right now is going to be Felix Palin. Actually, Andre Alfonso crosses the line with a 150.3. That is not going to be enough to take first place, although he is very, very close.
Yeah, that looked like a 1.9 second improvement. Looks like he's satisfied with that, or he's out of fuel.
Well, there's only 37 seconds left in qualifying, so I think he's going to pit it there and make sure he's got his race strategy figured out. Not a lot of time left to do that. Looks like Felix Palin going to post the same lap time as his previous. Going to be just within a hundredth of a second. Does a 157.59 rather than a 5.8. Very, very close. We'll see if he's able to get it out. This is going to be his last lap here at qualifying. Craig Bray coming across the line now. Or getting ready to cross the line, excuse me. With what looks to be a very good time. But he's coming up to the final chicane here and then 2 corners to go. See if he's able to hang on to the Delta. Not the best exit out of there, but still a second in the Delta. It looks like he's going to get some of it back on the straight. Maybe a light fuel load or a better exit than it looked like on camera, but now a second up. Also, Paul Wallenstein. I can't talk. Wallenstein up 2 seconds in the Delta. We'll take a look at their lap here in just a moment. Krieg's getting ready to finish his lap. Gets out a little bit wide, but I think it's still valid. Loses a bit of time. 7/10, 6/10, losing it down the straight, but it should be enough for a position gain on Ricky Scott if he does not invalidate. Gets it. Ricky Scott now 1.2 seconds up, coming around the final 2 corners. Paul Wallenstein almost 3 seconds in the Delta now, which will be a massive improvement gain if he's able to continue to shave down that lap time. It looks like he's going to. We'll get over to him in just a second. Ricky Scott going to cross the line with almost 9/10 of an improvement here. See, moves him from 7th, but does not gain, or yes, moves him up into 4th place, excuse me. Now Paul Wallenstein coming around the line. Oh, with a drift for the style points and gains time anyways. Now 3 seconds up in the Delta. He's going to be able to get across the line with that time, with the flare coming around the final corner. Let's see what that final time is going to be for Paul here. Moves him up into 8th place with a 152.7. Just one car out on the track now, going to be Felix Palet coming across the line now at the final car to cross the start-finish line, moving him up into 3rd place with a 151.07. And that is qualifying, folks.
I don't know about you. I'm holding up my 10 card for that drift, and
yeah,
you can drift around the last quarter and improve on your delta. You know you're doing it right. So, hats off to him. I also love to see him. We were just watching those cars there. Nobody except for Paul there cut. You cut right there at the start finish line. Everybody else is out in the middle of the track. So, good on Paul for getting every little hundredth of thousandths out there.
Absolutely. All right, now we've got 3 minutes till the race starts. Looks like the rain is coming back down. Let's take a look at that weather forecast. So up in the top left-hand corner there, you can see it is raining right now. We will see an increase in the rain in about 10 minutes, and then it says it's going to stop. We'll see if the drivers get that unlucky, but that might lead to some panic here because we might actually have a battle of tire strategies on our hands, folks.
Yes, it looks like, it'll at least be done raining by the 30-minute mark. Just depend on how much cloud we have and how much sun we have, I think, to see how fast that track will dry out. With 9 cars going around, it's not like we've got 30 out here to dry it off real fast, but it will be interesting nonetheless, because, of course, that 30-minute mark is right around the middle of the race, and with our pit window, we'll expect to see a lot of guys pitting for tires and fuel around that time.
Yeah, and it will definitely be interesting to see how the drivers handle this. Changing track conditions are one of the biggest complaints, I think, of any sim racer, just because of the extra strategy that goes into it, and having to think on your feet oftentimes can lead to mistakes in the pit lane, can lead to all sorts of mayhem for these drivers to have to try and deal with. We'll see what they do with it. Minute and 30 to go. Our quali times were looking pretty tight as far as what we should expect from the grid. I don't think there's any way for me to check it easily from here now. Doesn't look like it. Give me just 1 second here. I'll tab out of here. We'll take a look at what those times looked like. Let's go back here. Never mind. It's not going to show me. I'll do it over on my other computer. Got to get this one ready for the race anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big crybaby when it comes to weather and rain. I'll be the first to admit, but it does make things interesting. And weather is really an equalizer. Oftentimes you've got guys that are really fast in the dry and not so fast in the rain. And then when you throw in mixed conditions, everybody gets a little bit of everything there. And then it oftentimes comes down to, who pits at the right time. You don't want to stay out too early on wet tires, and similarly, you don't want to try to make dries last longer than they should if it starts raining. So it really will make things pretty interesting, I think. So I'm looking forward to it. But I'm not driving, so.
Well, no, we got the best seat in the house because we get to watch all of the action from up here, where we don't have to worry about driving the cars in these conditions. But yeah, it is certainly going to be an exciting day here at Imola. Even with 9 cars on the track with conditions like these, it will certainly be exciting no matter who we're watching on the track or who they might be battling with. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get our formation lap going. The drivers have this amount of time to warm up their tires. As we were mentioning during qualifying, these Evo 2s start without tire blankets, so they actually do need to try and get these warmed up before the races start. This will be their last opportunity to do so until they are pedal to the metal and racing down into this first corner. And that is when things are going to start to get exciting. But for right now, it is just on the drivers to drag those brakes and try and not spin off on camera during the formation lap, because that can definitely happen. It's not speaking from experience. I've definitely never done that.
Oh, sure, never.
I'm looking at the lineup here, and I don't think we have any people are too crazy. Occasionally, there was one of our sister leagues, Delta Racing League, had a 4 hours of Kailami race earlier in the day, and oftentimes we'll actually see drivers from both leagues show up for races today. Doesn't look like we have any of those madmen on the field today. But that was an exciting race to watch. Had plenty of friends out there. Mixed field at Kyalami. GT4s and GT3s definitely led to a lot of excitement and close racing. It's a shorter circuit, so it's a lot of traffic when you have mixed field at Kyalami. So it led to a lot of nerves, a lot of action to watch throughout the entire race, but that's why we love mixed field on longer races. But we're about halfway around the track here at Imola, getting ready to get this race underway. Not really much else to talk about aside from predictions. And honestly, I don't know that I want to make any now that we see a weather forecast that might potentially be changing on us.
Yeah, I would say, if the race was in a vacuum with nothing else to consider, I would probably say that Xu Chen is going to run away with this one. But again, there's a lot of different variables at play here. And I do want to say Xu Chen did race at Kyalami earlier today. So
oh, he did?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I Afonso, I feel like just needs to put it together. I think we've seen get into some incidents throughout his first couple rounds. Just keep it clean, and that will take you very, very far in a lot of things, and especially in virtual racing.
For sure, in virtual racing, especially when it is wet out there. Sometimes it comes down to which driver spun the fewest number of times. So we'll find out what kind of race it's going to be here real shortly. We are rounding the final corner. The cars are lined up in double file, and now they just walk their way around the straight until the green light is lit, and this race will be underway. 1 hour at Imola. It is going to be a wet start, might be a dry finish. We don't know yet, but stay tuned if you want to find out with us here. Thank you, everybody who has joined us from the beginning, anybody who tunes in until the end of the race, and of course, thanks to Apollo Racing Club for putting this on and letting us be here in the commentary booth to watch some racing here. Any second now, we'll have the green light, and we will have our answers as to what kind of race this is going to be, folks. And there's the green light. We start the drag race down the first straight into the first corner. It is going to be... Oh, it looks like it's going to be a battle between first and second, going too wide into the first corner, and they're all going to stack up here. It looks like Xu Chen gets out in front of it, just in front of Andre Alfonso to avoid too much drama there. We don't see the back of the field. Looks like those first two are going to make a runaway, and the rest of the pack is going to bunch up. We got one car off wide. Looks like that is Ricky Scott off wide there. Filters back into the pack without too much drama. So let's go ahead and jump to the helicam in the middle of the pack. Looks like that's where most of the action is at, and we'll keep an eye on the front here. Give me just 1 second to get this camera.
Yeah, Afonso and Chin getting away like they just robbed the bank here. Looks like they did a really good job of just firing in 1-2. Obviously, some more traffic further back has slowed up the rest of the field, so they look like they are off to a good start. But that said, it does look like, aside from a couple off tracks, that there's been no major signs.
Yeah, at least it looks like there may have just been some very, very, very minor contact in the first corner, whatever, or maybe that's what got that one car butted off. We've got one car loose and allows Craig Bray to pass on the inside. I believe that was Felix Palin. Now in fourth place, lets Craig up there. We'll see what's going on. The battle for first is still raging on. Does look like Xu Chen is going to hang on to that lead, but Andre Alfonso very close in tow, not letting him get too comfortable, but we're only one lap into this race, not even yet. Now watching Craig Bray come around that corner down into the final two. We've still got most of that pack bunched up in a battle for, I believe it's still fair to call it third, as we finish our first lap here at Imola. Xu Chen coming down the straight. Both of those Lamborghinis going very quick. As I mentioned during qualifying, those cars will be doing in excess of 150 miles an hour at full chat coming around that, even in the wet weather conditions, down to almost 60 miles an hour into turn one. But here we go, Craig Bray coming down. He's got company though. Felix Palin right behind him coming down into turn one, hard onto the brakes. Nice little cut of the apex there, gets it to open up to the exit into the next chicane. And it looks like the drivers in the middle of the pack still keeping things nice and tidy because they are all still bunched up.
Yeah, first major test there on the start of lap 2 as we see looks like Craig Bray go wide. Looks like Felix Palin is going to have a move on the outside, but Craig is fighting back quite roughly. So Felix taking advantage of that little mistake there. But what I was going to say is, yeah, that first major test coming into that braking zone in the wet, your first flying lap, it was very easy to brake late and rear end somebody, but you didn't see that there, thankfully. So good on these guys so far.
Go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and put that battle for first aside, because right now I really want all the camera space focused on this battle for third right now between Felix Palant and Craig Bray. Ice 10 also trying to battle, and Liam McNeil close in tow as well. Let me fix something really quick. We're still looking at their delta to their best lap. That's not what we want. We want race gaps. There we go. We can see just how close it is as Craig Bray has to... Oh, and we've got somebody spun around. Looks like Ice 10 facing the wrong direction. Trying to get over the cameras over to him on time. There we go. Gets spun around to the exit of the third chicane there. Going to get the car whipped around and start chasing up to the pack. We'll see what he's able to do. His pace was pretty good. Should be able to catch up in a little bit if he's able to keep the car on the track. But now we've got caution flag. There we go.
Yeah, definitely sad for Easton there, but good for us, as we'll have a car with a little bit more pace now at the back, trying to see what he can do to make his way back up through the field to at least get his old position back.
Yep, it's gonna take a little bit for that race gap to kind of stabilize there. Right now it looks like it's gonna be around 8 seconds that he's gonna have to make up to catch to the pack, but once he does, they are still right on top of each other. Liam McNeil getting within a half second of Craig Bray there in the middle of that first chicane. Let's take a look here. No, it looks like the battle with Xu Chen and Andre Afonso has more or less gapped out. There's almost 2 seconds now between those two, so I'll just keep an eye on that gap, and we're going to watch Craig Bray right now still battling for fourth position. It looks like the gap to Felix Palant's grown just a little bit, but I think that's mostly just the deltas kind of being wonky here. As we can see, it went from 10 seconds down to 5 there in pretty short order. So right now, I think we're just going to keep an eye on the battle between Craig Bray and Liam McNeil for fourth place. And Paul Valenstein also in the mix there. Just a couple of tenths coming down around Aqua Minerale there. And it looks like there's a lot of space between these cars, but it is just the TV making it look like there's more space than is actually there. It is a very claustrophobic corner complex there, try to pass somebody in or even be racing somebody with in Aqua Minerale. So really those 0.3 second gaps really are the feet between the car when they're moving at those speeds.
Yeah, you got to be very careful, especially if you're right up there on someone's bumper, because here we go, a little outbraking there from Paul. But yeah, no, especially through that last chicane, you got to be real careful if you're right on somebody, because you brake a hair too late, and you're either rear-ending them or cutting the chicane, as I saw Craig Bray do there last lap. So looks like he negotiated that successfully this time.
It can be just a good little reality check for the drivers. Wait, okay, hold on. Nope, it's wet. Yep, I'm following somebody. My brakes aren't going to work perfect. And then you cut the chicane. That's all it takes. It really does happen very quickly. And one thing we can't really appreciate from the TV cameras is the spray that those cars behind are seeing. We don't see quite as much of it from up here, but when they're on top of each other, you are essentially driving blind and just hoping you can see the rain light of the car out in front of you. And speaking of probably not being able to see out of the front of the car, Ricky Scott very close to Tim Wilkins here. Less than a half second between the two of them, battling it out for seventh, coming around that hairpin that ruins good laps. Let me see if I can get us an onboard with Ricky Scott here just so we can see what he's seeing out of here, if it's as bad as I am making it out to sound. Maybe not so close to the distance they're driving at this point, but it's not great.
Yeah, I can't see the weather widget, but I believe the rain is supposed to increase at some point during this first 30 minutes. So
yeah, let me
gonna get worse.
Let me take a look here. I can check for you. We have got we have got medium rain right now, and then no rain predicted in 10 minutes.
That early? Okay. Well, that makes it even more interesting. 10 minutes. The pit window opens up at 40 minutes, correct? 40 this morning? Or
it's 20 minutes. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can see the track is getting faster as Xu Chen sets another fastest lap. Timmy Wilkins outbrakes himself and runs wide in the second to last corner, and that is going to allow Ricky Scott to make a pass on the inside. It looked like it from our perspective, but no, they're side by side there. Timmy Wilkins Still on the outside of the track trying to find his way back on, but I do believe Ricky Scott's going to get the run from him. Not having lost a little bit of speed there on the gravel on the outside. That is all it takes, but Tim Wilkins staying in it, going to fight down into the first corner here. I think it does belong to Ricky Scott, but only by a couple of inches there. And I believe that's going to be the order they go in. We'll see here if he makes a runaway or if Tim Wilkins is going to stay in it here. Ice Tin starting to catch up to the pack now, too. We can see that is that third Lamborghini here in this train. It does look like Ricky Scott's starting to get away from him a little bit. A little bit of oversteer there we just saw on the corner of the camera there. Got it sorted out, and he's going to hang on to that lead. We've got another close battle here between Craig Bray and Liam McNeil out in front. Closing up to him now, less than a second between the two cars coming up around Tamarillo.
Has Craig lost a few positions? I thought he was in third.
He was for a little bit, then he got passed by Felix Palant, and then I believe when he missed the chicane, he lost that position to Liam as well.
Yeah, I couldn't quite remember if he was in front of McNeil or not. But trailing close behind right now at 88. A little bit oversteer there. Yeah, these cars, it's like they're strung so tight. No matter what you do with the suspension, which, as you mentioned, there's not a whole lot of options. Any bump, it's just like you're just rattling right over it, and easy for that rear end to dance out, as we see. Looks like Liam McNeil there with a little bit of an oopsie through the last two corners there. So Craig finds himself back in fourth place.
Just like I was saying at the beginning of the race, sometimes it turns into who spins the car the fewest number of times, but honestly, just who makes the fewest number of mistakes. But Craig's certainly not in the clear here. Liam McNeil right on his bumper coming into the first chicane. Looks as though Liam may have overcooked it just a little bit. We saw the car get unsettled coming or in the middle of that chicane there. And got Craig just a couple of feet out in front of the other chasing Lamborghini here. We'll see if Liam's able to close it up. Right as I say that, we saw he got very close on the brakes to Craig Bray, and now we're down to 0.3 of a second separating the two. And we're going to go right out of field, and there's contact just outside of the field of view of the camera there between those two. Going to spin Craig around, and now we've just got a traffic pile up. Ooh, and that was not pretty.
Yeah, the trees got in the way, and you could still see Liam closing in on there. I was like, oh no, here we go. And there it was.
Let's see if I can pull the replay up on the other computer and try and get a better picture of what happened there.
Yeah, he just had a really good run there through the hairpin, but unfortunately, by virtue of having a good run does not give you the right to rear in the car in front of you, so quite sure the stewards will be looking at that post-race. And that was a very interesting cut of the chicane there. Not sure if he spun or is still going. Looks like he did spin. That was Liam McNeil, who's now fallen down to 8th place. Yeah. Real easy to do there in any conditions. They call it the RNG chicane for a good reason.
Yeah, that's a good way to call it. All right, let's take a look at that accident there up in the hairpin here. We'll just go ahead and throw it up there. So we've got Kriegs and Felix coming down into the hairpin, and it looks like Felix maybe thinks he can squeeze up the inside there, and there's just no room to make it happen. Spins Kriegs around, and then we just got the rest of the cars having to filter around, just trying to get around them. And that is what happened there. Just a little bit too close for comfort, and that led to a spin.
I want to say that was an artful 180 there that he did to turn that car around. Man, I wish I could do it like that.
No kidding. Ricky Scott.
You never
here.
know. I was just going to finish that with the smallest of margins. Your ability to turn your car around could make the difference at the end of the race. Who knows?
Well, absolutely. No, getting those cars, those little 180s saves you from like a 20-point turn. So yeah, it saves time if you can pull it off. But the flip side is you overcook it and then you have to do another one. But Ricky Scott putting the pressure here on Paul Valentine. We can see Paul pushes a little wide there on Equimina Rally. Manages to keep the car under control, but is very slow if you go too quick through there. And it looks like Ricky Scott going to try and capitalize that. Look at the inside of the chicane, but gets on the brakes, prevents a collision there. It's very easy to kiss that inside curbing there and just kind of lose control of the car and go straight into the person you're chasing. So good judgment call there from Ricky to hold on to the car for a turn and try and make the passing attempt on another corner. He might try it here, but that outside line just is able to carry enough speed. Paul Valentine doing an excellent job of defending Ricky Scott, who very clearly wants to get around here. But as mentioned, Imola, very, very difficult to try and pass at. And is it just me, or does it look like the track's starting to dry up a little bit?
I think it is just a little bit here as we see Ricky trying to make use of that draft down the straight, and it'll be a game of who can brake better, as it looks like Paul has maintained his lead. Ricky has a good run for the first chicane. Very important there. If you want to sacrifice something, you got to sacrifice that first chicane there, just because you're on the gas as soon as you get through it, all the way through the second chicane and all the way down to this part of the track where we see them braking here, the next chicane. And looks like Paul has done a good job of holding him off. Definitely some good racing from these guys. Looks like they're kind of dancing on that fine line between being on the edge and over it, and they're doing a good job.
This is what makes single make so fun for me to watch, is when you get two drivers who have pretty similar pace. You're a little bit wide there by Paul out in front. That could be a very sketchy mistake there. All it takes is getting a little too on the brakes on that outside and you spin the car. Good car control from Paul there. But this is what makes single make so interesting, is you get two guys with kind of the same idea of how to drive the track in the same car, and you are led to just inevitable close racing here. I think that's kind of what we're getting a taste of here. Maybe Ricky Scott has a bit more pace and just not enough to try and make the pass happen. But nonetheless, we've got a very, very close battle for fourth here, and it's been going on for a couple of laps now.
Yeah, we've seen Ricky do a couple different things. He's trying the intimidation game, getting out on the inside, showing himself in his mirrors just to see if he can distract him, let him know that he's here. As, man, we said, we mentioned being on the edge and over it, and I believe he went over it there just a little bit. But, we'll see if he can continue this battle with the other cars around him. Looks like he's not too far off the pace, but I'm sure he'll be disappointed to see his battle with Paul, at least for now, and the way it did there.
Yeah, and he's got some work to do. Now, it looks like almost 4 seconds to catch back up to Paul, and a car in between them. He's got some work to do to try and get that position back. We'll keep an eye on that gap here, but let's just keep an eye on Ricky right now, trying to chase down Tim Wilkins out in front. Currently a 0.7 second gap.
Yeah, so just a little bit over 44 minutes to go here. For those at home that might not be aware, as a 60-minute race, there is a pit stop required, meaning that these guys will have to pit and change tires. And, well, they don't have to take fuel, but there's no reason not to in this case. And there's a pit window, so within the next couple minutes, that pit window will be opening. And it's really going to be interesting to see how this weather plays out. It looks like it has stopped raining. Has it stopped?
Yes, it has.
Okay, so, yeah, the track will, assuming it doesn't start raining again, just dry out from here. So the game within the game is to pit at the right time and decide when you're going to change to those. I would assume they're going to change to those dry tires. Again, it just depends on how fast that track dries out.
Well, it's already getting quicker as we're starting to see Xu Chen starting to whittle some time off the fastest lap. The rest of the field is getting quicker as well. We'll only see Xu's updates as he's currently holding the fastest lap unless somebody takes that away. But as mentioned, that gap just earlier in this lap was 0.7 seconds. Now a half second's been whittled away from that. Ricky Scott doing a very good job of pushing back up the field to try and get back up to Paul Wallenstein. But one thing that is going to be a relief for Ricky if he doesn't see it is that the gap between Tim Wilkins and Paul Wallenstein has gone.
Who is pitting already? What are you doing?
Tim Wilkins is into the pits first.
Oh, is the window 45 minutes or is it 40?
It's 40 minutes. We are not in the pit window yet.
I wonder what he's bidding for.
That may be a mistake. We'll see, unless it's over 3-minute pit stop, but I can't believe that'd be advantageous in any situation.
No, I don't think so. And I want to say you have to enter the pits after the after the 40-minute mark too. So not sure what's going on there, unless he's not doing the drive-through or something, is he? I can't see if there's
No,
track
we would.
limits or anything like that.
No, I would be able to see if he had a penalty over on my other monitor.
Okay.
Yeah, no penalties have been handed out, but you know, one thing I'm noticing though, I don't think there's a mandatory pit.
Well, the timing screen I'm looking at does have the orange one next to everybody.
So I just put that there, but I'm looking over. I hit the HUD button over on my other monitor to see if there was one enforced by the race, and it does not appear as though there is one. So let me go ahead and remove that, and we'll see if we enter a pit window. That would be. I'm not crazy. That would be a different from the previous races. Let me do a real quick.
They've all had a pit window with a required stop. Now this could be a required stop with no window. That's possible.
Potentially, but I would see a required stop on on the timing board. So just so you can see what I'm looking at here, folks, because again, I know I'm looking at two different screens here. So let me hide this, or actually let me do this in the correct order. Let's do that. And then it's a little cluttered, but I promise I'm going to clean it up here. So just so we can, oh no, there's mandatory pit on one, but not the other screen. Thank you, Kunos. So there is a mandatory pit. Never mind. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Tim Wilkins is thinking there, but.
Yeah, I don't believe there's anybody carrying enough damage to warrant making more than one stop. Certainly, if you've got some damage, as long as you can drive the car, you probably lose time by making 2 stops as opposed to just gutting it out for another couple minutes, as we should be less than 30 seconds from that window opening.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and put that back.
Yeah, one thing I noticed there, you can definitely see the cars now weaving around the track a little bit, looking for that dry asphalt, that wet asphalt. As you can see, Craig there getting off the racing line a little bit. The weather simulation of this game is pretty spectacular in terms of how the track is treated. So as the track dries out, there will be a dry line forming, and those wet tires do not like that dry track, and their pressures will go up, which makes the car much more difficult to drive. So if you can, oh boy, there goes Craig. Yes, he keeps it together, but he will lose a position. And yeah, I'm sure as that track dries out, those wet tires are getting a little bit more unruly. So we might see a few more mistakes. And like I said, we'll keep seeing those guys seek out that wet parts of the track, keep those tires cool.
Yeah, right now I think they're just... Well, we should be in the pit window, though, if there was one, because it would be at 20 minutes. We're at 39. The pit window is not opened. There's something fishy going on here. Looks like we've got our second car in. Paul Stein, excuse me, is going to go into the pits. Maybe, yeah, I think it's Kuno's things. Just not giving us the best information sometimes, but we'll keep an eye on that. I've adjusted the view over on my other monitor so I can actually see things reflected correctly.
Has Tim stayed in the pits, or is he back in again?
He is still in the pits, as a matter of fact. Or maybe a second pit? Because it says he served one already. But yeah, right now, just sitting in pit lane.
Yeah, he still has a 1 as in one's required, so I wonder what the deal is. It didn't look like his car was in any distress, you know, like he had a hardware malfunction or something like that, but
yeah,
you never know sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think he's left the pit, if I'm going to be honest. I think he's in there, and but that doesn't make sense. No, there he goes. He's going out. There we go, and I counted. So yeah, he served an extra pit stop. There's a second pit.
Oh, I thought this was I hopped over to the Discord, and the last message is a gift from Tim, not saying something nice. And I thought that was perhaps him while he pitted too early, but it was from about 30 minutes ago. So. Oh,
and then the number 920 car, that's going to be Paul Wallenstein, picks up a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lanes. Not good.
No, shoot yourself in the foot. It's one thing to lose a race to someone else. It's another thing to lose it to yourself by making mistakes like that.
It does not feel good when you're doing it to yourself. There are a few things that can get you to beat yourself up more than cutting the track one too many times, or just not being on the brakes soon enough coming into the pit lane. Or the classic me move, and that's forget to turn the pit limiter back on when you're leaving, and then speed and catch and panic. And then you have to wait until the end of pit road until it gives you the penalty, so you're just sitting there doing the walk of shame. But Ice Tin doing an excellent job here of pushing, trying to get another position gained here, closing up on Ricky Scott out in front.
Looks like Paul, Craig, and Tim there have cleared their stop requirements. So yeah, be interesting to find out from Tim what that was about post-race. But Ricky Scott looks like he has been passed there by Easton, so a very good move there. And by the way that Easton's pulling away, I have to probably put that down to probably condition of the tires at this point, because neither of them have stopped. So for all we know, Ricky could be running on some balloons right now.
Yeah, and looking at their pace, that pass does seem to make sense. And actually, as I say that, Shu Chen into the pits now, and that gains Andre Alfonso a position momentarily. We'll see if the undercut from Shu works for him. But right now, Andre seems to have very, very good pace on his tires. Did a 149.3 was the last lap, which is still faster than the entire field right now. So we'll see what Shu Chen's pace looks like when he gets back out on the field. Ricky Scott still trying to catch up to Ice Tin, who seems to have lost a little bit of time. What looked like was going to be an easy getaway from Ice Tin turns into a very close pit entry for both drivers here. And we'll see who has the better pit stop now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to come down to who hits the box the best. I can't see the track condition, but I'm gonna guess it's probably still damp at this point.
Yeah, let me. I'll go ahead and I can give you an answer to that one.
Still see a little bit of, tiny bit of spray coming up from rear tires and just a few spots on the track.
It is still damp, and the sun is beginning to come out. And actually, as I say that, the track went from damp to greasy, so it is drying out by the second.
Yeah, so these guys that haven't come in, now is the time.
It looks like everybody's who hasn't come in is in the pits already, save for Andre Alfonso, who is still out on track. Shu Chen out on, or now back out on the track there. Good pit stop from them, and then who is Ricky Scott and Ice Tin, where the other two are going to keep an eye on here. Felix Palant comes off the jacks now out there. Ricky Scott off the jacks and moving. Ooh, and is very close, but it looks like Ricky Scott comes out first. I'm not mistaken, correct? It was Ice Tin, then Ricky to come into the pits, so Ricky comes out in front.
Yeah, you can see more shadows on the track here. The sun is definitely coming out from behind the clouds, so we should continue to see lap times go down as the track dries out, and I mean, you never know, but it looks like we'll have a dry last 33 minutes of this race.
Yep, and actually we're already beginning to see a dry line forming on the track here. There's actually no, I don't see any more puddles at this point. Yeah, no, the drivers are just sticking to that dry line. We are definitely going to have a dry finish to this race. The wind has picked up quite a bit, and it is blowing in more overcast weather. Track temp is also picking up.
Yeah, track will heat up and dry out pretty quickly. I know they changed some things with the weather fairly recently, but if the sun comes out recently, it seems the track will go from greasy, it'll skip everything else, and it'll just go straight to optimum pretty quickly. So I would not be surprised if we see that happen pretty soon here. I mean, it's just wild how fast it goes.
Yeah, and speaking to the quality of simulation and the weather here, if you pay enough attention, you will catch the reflection of the wet. You actually see a really good shot of it there. The curbing is still reflecting the headlights of these cars. So that is still properly wet over there, considering how little time the cars actually spent on the curbs. So those are still going to drive like they're on glass. So the driver's going to be extra careful coming off of a dry line where there's grip onto that rumble strips on the outside there. There's going to be very, very different grip conditions. The driver's going to be extra careful, but Ice Tin really putting the pressure on Ricky Scott here. The battle for fourth getting even more intense now, as we might see a bit of a drag race down into turn one. Ice Tin taking a very wide line there, but it looks like they're going to be side by side coming into turn one. It's going to be a battle of who has the better line and who can brake better into turn one. Looks like Ice Tin is going to opt to filter in single file through that first chicane. I can't say that I disagree with that judgment call at all.
Yeah, absolutely not. That was well played there by Ricky. Either you want to let the guy on the inside outbrake himself and overshoot, or you want to make sure that you are ahead going into that first complex there. It looks like Ricky really did a good job there.
Now up the hill into Tamarillo. Now just 0.4 of a second separate them, so it does look like they're kind of Ice Tin rubber banding off the back of Ricky Scott. We'll see if he's able to make the pass happen here. Imola, not an easy track to pass at when you've got a defending car that's got reasonable pace. We'll see what Ice Tin's able to do with it now down into Aqua Minerale.
Alfonso still in the pits, and Xu Chen has passed him, and it looks like Alfonso is out. But yeah, Xu Chen's lead, I'm not sure what it was when he went into the pits, but up to 9.2 seconds now, it looks like.
It just looks like the undercut from Xu Chen. The early pit stop was the correct call to make. As we can see, getting out on that dry compound let him put down quicker laps while Andre was still out there managing the wet weather compound. And that led to an 11-second gap. I don't believe it was that big before the pit stops. Oh, and we've got Ice Tin overcooks it a little bit into the second to last corner there. And that's going to give Ricky Scott some breathing room.
Yeah, Ricky won't be sad to see that. But yeah, it's so easy to do coming down that hill. Even if you're on a dry track, you think you can push it later and later and later, breaking into that second to last turn there. Because honestly, sometimes it feels like you brake in the same spot, and in the back of your mind, you probably didn't. But you brake too early, and you're like, oh man, I can push it back a little bit. But you really got to be careful, because it's easy to do exactly what Ice Tin just did there.
Oh, and we got an acknowledgement from chat. I had it behind a window. Sorry about that. But from much earlier in the race, but from JA Games, talking about Timmy Wilkins, letting us know that, yeah, he did go into the pits twice.
Yeah.
That was from a while ago, but I try to make sure everybody's getting mentioned here. Keeps it more fun. Oh, I see that gift from Tim Wilkins now, too.
Yes.
that's good. Yep, track is definitely getting quicker here. Xu Chen now with the new fastest lap of the race, 1:47.4. And we'll see what Afonso's quick lap is going to be once he's gotten those tires up to temperature. But right now, it does not look like there's really any close racing to be had at the moment. Right now, we're just kind of managing a gap between Ricky Scott and Ice Tin, which does seem to be getting smaller. And as I say that, it looks like Ricky Scott really gets a good exit there and finds another 0.3 on Ice Tin.
Yeah, as the race goes on, you got to be really careful through that last chicane there, because it is so easy to cut it, and the game is not very sympathetic there. Some corners, you can cut and let off before before it's determined that you've gained too much of an advantage, but that is definitely not one of them. As soon as you're out of there, if you've cut it too much, it's going to do you. So with that kind of exit, it didn't look bad. I wonder if he's trying to manage track limit warnings. It's definitely a possibility at this point of the race.
I would imagine that's probably got a lot to do with it. Taking a look at the track conditions, it is continuing to warm up, still saying it's a greasy track, but as we can see out here, it is, I think we're really only talking about a little bit of moisture on the curbing at this point to make it greasy. Pretty soon, it's looking like it may turn into a fast track, not quite optimum, but it definitely doesn't look green to me, so decent track conditions for these drivers to be dealing with. We'll see if it actually goes too fast. It still says greasy, though. Another fastest lap out of Xu Chen. Manages to find almost another half second that lap. And Andre
Yeah,
Alfonso not having a great time right now. Says he is currently 5 seconds down on his pace. Let's take a look what's going on over there. Coming around. There we go. What was his last lap? It was a 1:48.5, so he's got 2 seconds off the pace of Shu Chen out in front.
Yeah, of course. Shu Chen will be on much warmer and up to pressure tires than Afonso at this point still, so I would imagine he's still going to continue to draw out a little bit more time. As I think we mentioned, these cars do not have tire warmers, so the tires come off very chilly and very under pressured. And when you add to that the condition of the track, still a little bit of moisture, on a greasy track, it takes them even longer amount of time to warm up and get up to pressure. So iced in there with the purple sector too. So you can see that even guys not at the front are still continuing to ramp up their lap times here.
And yeah, not by a small margin either. He's got just over 1/10 of a second on Shu Chen in Sector 2. So yeah, it's just goes to show you, man, it really is a battle of sectors depending on who you're racing. But that gap is closing between Ricky Scott and Ice Tin. That purple sector from Ice Tin certainly helping him. But looking at their pace around the field right now, it looks like the last lap, Ricky Scott over a half second faster than Ice Tin in the final sector. And that might be what is keeping him in front of Ice Tin, because Ice Tin is decidedly faster everywhere else. And as we were talking about that purple sector
there
2, there it went, with Shu Chen crossing the line with a 1:45.4, stealing away that goal or purple sector 2 from Ice Tin by a little over a half second. The gap is getting closer still. Now 1.2 seconds. He is whittling it away, folks. We may have a battle on our hands. Still 25 minutes to go here at Imola. 18 laps down. And actually, the entire field, I believe, is on the lead lap still.
Looks like these guys will be our two to watch, but you never know. Even as the track drives out, it's definitely still possible to make mistakes, especially here at Imola. You take chicane the wrong way, you hop the car up in the air, you go off into the sand, it'll really slow you down. So we might see some more ebbing and flowing of guys here on track, but hopefully these guys can keep it close and give us something good to watch here.
Yeah, and especially as these track conditions improve, one thing I know constantly I have to remind myself of is that I am getting faster and my braking positions are going to change. And like you're saying, that last chicane there is dicey even if you have a good idea of how the car is going to behave. Throw on top of the fact that it's very obvious that the track is getting faster, and that braking zone is going to become all the more important. But now we've got a race up into Tamarillo here as Ice Tin gets side by side with Ricky Scott, passes him briefly. Looks like Ricky may have just gotten intimidated a little bit out of that corner there, gets a bit too far inside, which means he may have overslowed, and that's going to allow Ice Tin to get out in front and gain almost a second just in the course of 2 corners here. We'll see what Ricky's able to do with it. Manages to find another 3/10, try and cinch back up to him coming up into that chicane we've been talking so much about. Let's see how the drivers do. Both of them taking a pretty safe line through there. I think both of them trying not to pick up any extra track penalties there. Yeah, the quick way over that chicane is, well, over the chicane, but it could be a little bit dicey with the track limits. So if we've got drivers that are getting ready to pick up a penalty, that's going to slow them up a lot going around that chicane. It looks like that's the line that Ricky was having to take through there. But let's see what Ice Tin is able to do now that he is out in front, got some clean air. Let's see what his lap times look like.
Got to be careful of that exit as well. The 3 little sleeping policeman curbs there. You can kind of touch the edge of them, but if you have too much of a tire on them, you will pick up a track cut warning as well. Looks like Ice 10 is motoring on down the road here. I believe that's a 2-second gap already. So, and you'll have to help me out here. The yellow timing, is that a personal best for the driver?
I'm actually not entirely sure. It can't be because there are still purple sectors. I think yellow just means. No, that
So
can't be
like,
it.
is Ice 10's best lap of 47.215?
Let me tell you. 47 to no, his best lap was a 146.3.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I actually because it shows green, yellow, and red and purple, so I'm not really sure what all of them mean. Maybe it just means it's close.
Mm.
Green means ahead of average, yellow is like on average, red is behind. I couldn't tell you. But if we take a look over, so like Liam McNeil, we've got red, and then Craig Gray, we've got a little bit of a mix-up. I'll reach out to the devs. I really should know what that means, and it's definitely not the documentation. Or if it is, I'm just blind, which is true. But it does look like now that Ice Tin is out and in front of Ricky Scott, it does look like he's able to start putting his pace down. Now 2.7 seconds on that lap. We'll see what the lap times look like. Last lap out of Ice Tin is going to be a 146.7, and Ricky Scott's a 147.8. So it does look like Ricky Scott may have been holding up Ice Tin for a little bit there. But now he can start trying to chase down Felix Palin up in third. He's got his work cut out for him. 21-second gap to make up here. We'll see what he's able to do. But certainly hats off to Ice Tin after a very unfortunate accident earlier in the race. Got him into a little bit of a last to first challenge. But we actually have two drivers that have done that today. I believe Felix Palin was the other one, now up in P3.
Yeah, it's definitely an exercise in mental fortitude. You know, you have to have a short memory sometimes. If your race gets off to a bad start, you know, it's an hour long in this case, so plenty of time to rectify some mistakes, or you know, if you were a victim of an unfortunate incident, to improve your situation. So definitely looks like those two have been able to do that today.
Indeed it does. Let's see. I'm looking around the rest of the field, and it looks like we've pretty much settled in as far as the track condition goes. Let me see if it's finally switched off of greasy. It's been fun to try and keep track of. There goes the pit window. That means there are 20 minutes remaining here. 2/3 of the race down. 21 laps in. Xu Chen has a fairly commanding lead on first place. Andre Alfonso has, well, also a very commanding lead on second, and Felix Palin looking pretty secure in third place here, so the grid is fairly spaced out. We've got Felix Palin on camera right now, catching up to that looks like Paul Valenstein's car. So we'll have a little bit of lap traffic action here in just a moment. Let me get an update on those track conditions for you. It is a green track, and interestingly enough, the wind has picked up, but in 30 minutes, I don't think we'll see it. There is light rain in the forecast. We might get lucky and see just a little bit of a sprinkle at the end of the race, but it does look like we're going to finish this race in the dry on a green track. And it is continuing to get faster as we see. Xu Chen comes across the line with another best lap of the race with a 145.4.
Felix with a bit of an oversteer moment through Aquaman Rally there. Will lose him a little bit of time. I was just about to toot his horn for him with that purple sector there last lap for sector 1. Yeah, but looks like he will lose just a tiny bit of time, but still has a nice healthy gap back to Ice 10, running in fourth place.
Speaking of Ice 10, doing a good job. Lap times are improving. If we look at his, let's change that little window down at the bottom. We can actually look at his last couple of laps here. Just one second. So there's his last 3 laps. We can see he is consistently getting faster. So we'll see what he's able to do. But what was, I believe, almost a 20-second gap out to Felix Palin, now down to 17.5. And looking at the pace, it may have just been a rough lap for Felix last lap with a 151 being his lap time, but a 146.9 out of ice 10 there does explain that closing gap. He's closing up on Tim Wilkins there. He's going to be the other Lambo we saw just off camera there. We'll have some lap traffic to watch here in a little bit. Ricky Scott also doing a good job. Lap time's a little less consistent, but right now 0.3 up on the previous lap. So looking to maybe post an improvement on their lap time there. Really cut that inside corner there, that chicane, but now that the track is dry, drivers can be a little bit more confident the car is not just going to spin on them.
Yeah, the exit of that chicane is so tricky. Just depends on how much speed you're carrying through there and what line you could take, because, and I unfortunately haven't been able to drive this track in this car, but in most cars there's just a little spot where you can almost completely cut over that yellow curbing there, but if you miss it on either side, you are not going to have a good time. So if you're brave, you can try it, but you'll see most guys staying well to the outside of the track. Looks like Ice 10's making his way around some lap traffic there.
Yep, gets away nice and clean. And we're going to have Ricky Scott and Craig Bray making the same pass here in just a little bit. You see Ricky Scott rounding the final corner there in the background. The gap to third place has more or less stayed the same this entire lap, still 17.5 seconds. Both drivers doing 147.2's last lap. And both of them actually fairly close in their best lap times as well. Best lap out of Ice 10 with a 146.3. Best lap time out of Felix, 146.4. But it really is those last lap deltas that we're worried about. And right now, both of those drivers very, very consistent in their lap times. Is going to make it difficult for Ice 10 to try and catch. Only 15 minutes remaining here. 23 laps down already in what seems to have happened in a blink of an eye. And we've seen everything from a wet track to a greasy one to now a green one. These drivers have had to deal with a little bit of everything today, and they might not necessarily be out of it. If the wind continues to pick up, we might see a little bit of a drizzle at the end of the race just to spice things up here in the final 15 minutes of the race. Looking around the field right now, does not look like there's too much action going on anywhere. It looks like most of our drivers are kind of running their own race right now. And at this point, we kind of just watch our drivers and see what they're able to do. You know, the track's going to get a little bit faster. We'll watch our drivers maybe post a couple more fastest laps. Xu Chen definitely still has it in him. But we'll see what happens. Right now, we kind of just coast.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
Well, especially when there's 9 cars on the field. You know, in a track that is as big as Imola, they're only going to be close for so long. But actually, just heard a car go off there right in front of Felix. We still don't see who it is. That's Paul Valenstein, just a little bit too quick into that first chicane. A little bit of a power slide around that corner there. Overslowed just a little bit is what it looked like. Now around the hairpin. I think this is going to... You know, there we go. There's the blinkers. See if Paul lifts. He must have. And then up around Tamarillo. Nice and safe-like.
Yeah, for these guys on the lead lap. Oh, sorry, I just saw that yellow flag there as well. Looks like he just dipped off track a tiny bit. Nothing to see here, he says.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be about successfully negotiating a few back markers here and there. So you never know when you know, 2 drivers on different laps get close to one another. Sometimes you get some mixed signals. Sometimes you get some things you wish would happen that don't, and that's when trouble can occur. So hopefully these guys will keep it clean for the last looks like 13 or so minutes here.
And the other thing we gotta keep in mind here is driver fatigue is definitely going to play a factor here, especially after having to deal with changing road conditions and now a spaced out field. It's easy to get complacent, and at the end of an hour, I know we said that Shu Chen earlier today participated in an hour-long race, but the thing to remember is those guys are on much shorter stints. In this race, they get technically a little break because they've got a middle of the race pit stop just to take 30 seconds and think about what's going to happen next, but they're still responsible for the entire hour themselves, whereas these endurance races, they're splitting it up against 2, 3, sometimes 4 drivers, and not nearly responsible for as much driving. It really does, at the end of an hour, you really are starting to feel it, even if it's broken up by a pit stop, and with changing road conditions, these drivers are really going to have to stay on top of it. You can't get complacent and just start thinking, end of the race is in 12 minutes. I just gotta, just coast and take it easy. You can say that to a certain extent because you may not necessarily be battling with a car that's right next to you, but you still have to think about every lap. You can't relax. You still have to think about your braking marks. These drivers are not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that hot lapping mentality. Part of your brain just switches off and you're just driving. So gotta maintain that focus. Absolutely.
See Ricky Scott getting ready to pass somebody here. It looks like Tim Wilkins here coming into Aqua Minerale. Rough part of the track to catch somebody. But looks like, Tim's going to get to the outside and let him pass up into the final chicane here.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to catch people, especially if there is a pace difference. Not only is it a hard part of the track to get around anybody, if you're going faster, you're carrying that much more momentum. You have to slow down that much more. So definitely not a place where you want to run up on the back of somebody.
No, and as we saw in the hairpin earlier, sometimes catching somebody even with the same pace in a corner can spell disaster for both drivers. All it takes is just a little bit of a misjudgment of who's going faster where, and you get a car spun around and traffic piling up on the worst hairpin on the entire track. So, but it looks like Ricky does a good job of safely negotiating passing that slower car. Now try to keep the gap to Ice Tin reasonable. Speaking of gaps in Ice Tin, it looks like he is going to be pretty much locked into that 17.5, 18-second gap behind Felix Palent. Both drivers putting down nearly identical lap times to each other each lap, although faster one out of Felix Palent by almost 0.7 of a second is going to explain the growth in that gap there. We'll see if Ice Tin's able to whittle it down, but I don't believe we're going to see him catch third place by the end of the race with less than 10 minutes to go here at Imola.
Yeah, you read my mind with that 17, 18-second gap. Pretty consistent there. A new penalty system for ARC this season, including a few harsher penalties. So we'll have to see what the stewarding team decides to hand out post-race as far as penalties go, but these gaps are getting big enough between the cars that unless we're talking something deserving more of 15 seconds in some cases, it might not even make a difference, which is definitely interesting to think about. We're talking about switching off and just hot lapping, but if you have been involved in an incident and you think you might have a penalty coming, you have every incentive to just keep pushing, because you never know when that extra second or two between you and the guy behind you might save you a position.
Yeah, and I've absolutely been in that scenario before where, I'm 10 seconds ahead of a guy, but I've got a 15-second penalty. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter that I can't see the car behind me. He's still going to finish in front of me if I don't focus up and start growing that gap. And, a lot of these drivers, I'm sure, are sitting on 3 track warning penalties. For those who don't know, the fourth one is either a drive-through or a stop-and-go, varying length depending on the track. I believe it's just a drive-through here at Imola. Which is going to be factoring into the equation on how these drivers are, trying to finish these laps. But something I'm starting to notice, and I'm going to go ahead and check the weather, it's starting to get a little bit darker out there on the track.
Yeah, it's clouding up.
Let's see how close we are to some rain. I don't think we'll see it before the end of the race. Now 8 minutes to go. But let's see what the weather forecast says. Yep, no longer overcast. We now have solid clouds, but we're not going to see any race before this race is over. Although the track is starting to cool off a little bit, may factor into the tire performance for some of these drivers. It's already dropped 2 degrees since the last time I checked. Let's see here. Let's take a look at Shu Chen here, see what they're doing. Doesn't look like they're getting ready to catch anybody on the track. Let's see who's close here. These two are relatively close. The number, it's 94 and Tim Wilkins, the ones that we just saw that pass a little bit ago. Those are the 2 closest cars on the track. Although Shu Chen does look to be catching Craig Bray here, we might see a pass between those 2 here, maybe before the end of the race. But yeah, sorry folks, not really a whole lot else that we can show here, because right now really everybody is equidistant to everybody on the track. I've got I'm looking at I've got a line to show me where everybody is, rather than the whole track map, and everybody's pretty spaced out here right now.
Yeah, obviously easier to happen if there's only 9 cars on track, but you know, sometimes you got 20 cars on track and not much going on. So
very true. I've definitely seen that happen too. But let's get a little on board of Shu Chen's lap here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, one of the things you see Shu Chen do a good job of here is using the whole track, taking it all the way out to the edges on a corner exit, getting down nice and deep on the apex there, and that's one thing that separates a lot of faster drivers from their peers, is the willingness to use all that track that's available to you. That's pretty close to
that was pretty wide.
Track limit. But no, honestly, that's about where the line is, and you can see coming through Aqua Minerale. Now that's pretty close too. There's some fine lines here. A lot of times on this track, it's easy to think that you're still good, and you can pick up a warning without really even meaning to here. So, but yeah, just taking it all the way out and using all that track. You know, the saying is, you paid for it all, you might as well use it. Not quite the case here, but definitely in principle.
No, I'm really I'm hyper focused now on watching his line and just how much of the track that he's using. It's really impressive, and the consistency too is the other thing. I'd say those 2 things really separate the drivers out more than anything else. I would say are consistency and your willingness to use the entire track. And just as we say that, we got to watch a new fastest lap get set by Shu there with a 1:45.13 to be the fastest.
See, look at that. We did that. We teed that up right there.
Yeah. We'll see if he's able to do it again. But closing up on Craig Bray here, we might see a pass here. Less than 5 minutes remaining here at Imola. 30 laps down by our race leaders. And we might get to see one more pass before the race is over. Coming around the hairpin there. Looks like Creeks takes an inside line there. Might have been a little bit slow up into Tamarillo. The blue flag is being waved. It means there's less than a second between the 2 of them now.
Yeah, not following F1 blue flag rules, so the blue flag car does not need to jump out of the way or dive off track, as you see some folks do. But really, it's down to the 2 drivers to work together to let the faster car pass in a way that is safe, and ideally one that minimizes time loss for both drivers. You know, you don't want to get stuck behind somebody, and at the same point, by the same token, I suppose, as the blue flag car, you do not want to give up a ton of time in your race either. So it looks like Trace goes a little wide there. It works. Not sure if it was intentional, but sometimes it just works out that way.
Yep, and Shu definitely lost some time on that lap. 1.2 seconds down on that previous lap. And that's nobody's fault, but it just goes to show just how crazy fast this driver is. Let's see what he's able to do this lap. Now he's got clean air and nobody behind him to worry about. Let's see what he can do. Now, I'm sure we're getting to the end of the fastest laps those tires are going to be able to do. Actually, are probably at this point long gone, but the fuel load in that Lamborghini is going to be much lighter than it was at any previous point in the lap. And right now I'm watching his sector times. They are very, very close to his best.
Yeah, if you've managed the tires well, especially if we're only talking, 30-minute stints here, you drive 30 or so minutes, pit and change tires, and drive another 30 or so minutes. Definitely not as bad as if you were doing an hour-long stint on the tires, but yeah, with these 30-minute stints for the tires, a lot of times you'll find is when you get down to just a few liters left in the tank as we go a little wide there. Just being careful not to go over any bumps at the wrong angle, because that will spin you right around, especially in this car. Yeah, you can find that with 30 minutes of wear on the tire and not a lot of fuel left in the tank, that you can actually still lap faster than when you had a pretty full tank and new tires. So it's definitely a little bit of a give and take there if you're able to manage your tires well throughout the stint.
Man, I raced here Thursday night, because we do a Thursday night race that mirrors the GT3 League. So we were here a little bit ahead of them. We were doing it in the Porsche Cup car, the new 992, and just watching the way that these Lamborghinis are on rails compared to that car in the wet really is impressive. Now we are on the final lap of the race. As Xu Chen crosses the line, the white flag will wave. So this is going to be the final lap here at Imola by our race leader. And this is absolutely going to be our finishing order unless something catastrophic happens, like a disconnect or maybe somebody's force feedback stops working. But definitely hats off to Xu Chen for a monster of a drive. And honestly, that goes across the field. Very, very fast lap times from everybody. In second place there. Sets a lap time 0.3 off of his best this late into the race. Definitely speaks to his consistency and skill as a driver. Felix Palant in third place also, putting on a very good drive after an unfortunate incident early in the race. Sets him back a couple of positions. Ends up finishing where he qualifies in third place. Ice Tin, gets a little close to Paul Wallenstein there. Paul has to run a little bit wide there, but Ice Tin gets around him safely and earns a well-fought-for fourth position after qualifying in fifth and passing most of the field a couple of times there. He's going to finish in fifth place here. I believe he has one more lap to go, though. Ricky Scott also very likely to finish where he's at in fifth place. Well fought for, down on the day, but definitely a drama-filled race and a finish he should be happy with. Craig Bray also a lot of drama today, getting spun around in the hairpin earlier in the race like we saw there. Going to finish in sixth place. Liam McNeil in seventh, finishing where he qualified. I'm sure a good result for them. Paul Wallenstein as well in eighth place. Still finishing in eighth. Yeah, and Tim Wilkins' yellow flag, but just getting passed by cars going way faster. He was just trying to finish the race there rather than have to do another lap. But Xu Chen does finish the race in first place to wave the checkered flag. We'll see Andre Alfonso now coming around the second to last corner to finish their race. Will be in second place. Go ahead and watch
it might not be as exciting as coming across the line, a couple tenths in front of your competitor, but those guys up there on the podium, I can tell you, definitely do not care how far ahead they are of their opponents. You'll take whatever you can get when you're racing. So
yeah, and
let's put off their backs.
And when there's only 9 cars on the field, I mean, everybody's getting a fairly substantial amount of points. So, I mean, honestly, as far as the standings go, every driver here is going to be happy because a lot of people didn't show up because of the wet weather. And they're missing out on points. So there goes Felix Palant to cross the line in third place. And I believe Ice 10 is going to be the final car to cross the start-finish line. Excuse me, I misspoke. There are a couple of others that haven't quite finished as well. But Ice 10 to cross the line in a hard-fought fourth place and a well-deserved fourth place, to be sure. Crosses the line there. And then Ricky Scott, I believe, is going to be the final car on track to cross the start-finish line in fifth place. And that is going to be the race here at Imola. And there you have it, folks. Let's go ahead and take one last look at our finishing standings here. It's going to be Shu Chen in first place, Andre Afonso in third, Felix Palant in fourth, Ice Tin in fourth, Ricky Scott in fifth, Craig Bray in sixth, Liam McNeil in seventh, Paul Wallenstein in eighth, Timmy Wilkins in 10th, and it looks like Andre Lloyd is a DNF for it. But that is going to do it for us this week here at Apollo Racing Club. I want to go ahead and say a big thank you to everybody who made it for the race. It was a pleasure to have you all. Massive thank you to our guest commentator. Made it way easier to try and manage an hour, especially with the race we were watching today. Could not have appreciated the help more. Thank you very much again to Jeff Spangler for joining us. But yeah, that's going to do it. Join us next week. We are going to be at Laguna Seca, one of my, if not my favorite track here in the game. I think really no, that's just my favorite track. But it'll be exciting for sure. Lamborghinis at Laguna Seca, I can attest to personally. Very, very exciting. So it'll be a race that you want to watch. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that follow button so you get notifications every time we go live so you don't miss a race. We've got races every night of the week, folks, ranging from, well, single make Lamborghini Super Trofeos all the way down to F4 in iRacing. So there's really something for everybody. Go ahead and give us a follow. We hope to catch you next week. As always, my name is Matt McAdams. Joining me in the commentary booth this weekend was Jeff Spangler. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Before we go, I'd tell you a secret.
Sure.
I only have 2 track stars at Laguna Seca.
Ooh, we're gonna have to fix that before next week.
Yes, I think my streak, 2-year streak, will have to end. I think I finally have to race there.
All right, and just like that, next week, folks, make sure you are here so you can ask if he actually got that final track star. Thanks for joining us again, and we will catch you next weekend here at Apollo Racing Club. Thanks for watching, everybody.